What's up, guys? It is another day in the shop. Let's get into it and see what we got going on. And I am on the buggy. I've already pulled apart a little bit of the steering so I can expose what we've got. But my steering protection did what it was supposed to. It protected the steering, but it got bent up pretty good doing it. It's got 3/16 quarter-inch plate in here, but I didn't have it gusseted at all. I really just thought this tube would be enough, and it just wasn't. The full weight of the buggy landing on it, coming down from a couple of feet, just bent it up. I hit it multiple times in the same spot, which I'm sure didn't help. My biggest concern, this engineered joint is bent. I'm sure we've got all kinds of funky stuff going on there. Don't know how that's going to come apart very well. I don't have a replacement at this point, but I think what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to cut it right along here and separate the plate from the tubing. Then I'll cut the tubing in here, and then I'm going to probably remove the wheel and try to get something in here and bend that down and try to re-bend this area of this joint and see if we can't just get it somewhat straightened out. We'll see how it goes. It may not work. I may just end up having to. I'm not too concerned about that being an engineered joint in its entirety. If I have to take it apart and use the grinder and whatnot to cut those pieces different so that they'll fit, that's fine. I'm not too concerned about it. But I am going to bend all of this back into place and replace the tubing. We're going to sleeve it. The inch and I think that's 1 3/4 inches over some 1.5 inch aluminum. And what that's going to do is just help it absorb the shock and not deform as easily. And then we'll get it all welded back up. If I can't get the plate straightened out, I'm going to replace it with tubing or a combination of tubing and plate and make it a little bit stronger that way. All right, let's get into it.
The next morning.
All right, YouTube, it's Glenn, Red Dog Motorsports, back out in the shop today. Back on my buggy, ham and cheese sandwich. We're doing the work that needs to be done to get ready for Texas, Katemsi Rock specifically. Yesterday when we left off, I had everything cut down here on my steering protector. It's really all it is. It has nothing to do with trussing it or anything. It just holds my steering, protects it from being bashed. It's done a good job so far. Yesterday we cut the tube out. I got the plate straightened out. It ain't perfect, but it's gonna be good enough for what I am gonna do. I got my engineered coupler cleaned up. It ain't perfect. If this was in a roll cage or something, I would need to replace this. It's been compromised at this point. I've cut into it and whatnot, but it'll work for this. In this instant, all it really does is allow me to remove the center section to gain access to my ring gear if I need to change that or open up the front end. It doesn't provide, I'm not doing any roll cage type things with this. So now what I got to do is bend this tube. Then we're going to sleeve the aluminum into it, and I'll need to then cut a brace to go in here. I got to be careful. I've got to get underneath this part of the steering when it's at full lock. So we'll need to put the steering back together to confirm that. But for now, let's get in here. I was measuring earlier. Let's see if we can show this. Looks like we have a 55-degree bend. First, we're going to sleeve, then we're going to pull the bender out. So I got to measure that length and then sleeve it. We're going to sleeve a little bit short so that I leave room on the ends for welding and whatnot, so I don't contaminate my welds by melting the aluminum and having it outgas and contaminate the welding. But so let's get on that, and then we'll bring you back. All right, so getting the saw set up, I've got it set for a 52-degree angle. and just used my angle finder, laid it up along the flat side to square it up, and then set the table, the fence, at that proper angle. The reason that I'm doing that is I'm going to cut the corresponding angle for here where it meets the axle tube. I'm going to cut that first so that that notch can be done first. I'm going to get that notch done, and then when we sleeve it with the aluminum, I'll sleeve it probably from that end so that it goes in and clears that, and I'll leave it just a couple inches short of where I need it on this end, so that when I bend it and cut it to fit the engineered fitting, I don't overrun. Because the problem is, once I bend it, if I'm too far along on the inside, nothing will fit, and I'll have to try to machine it out or drill it out or get into all kinds of craziness I'm just not interested in doing if I screw up. And I don't want to waste the aluminum in the tube. So this is the way we're going to do it. I'm going to get this cut, and then I'll get the aluminum cut, and then we'll show you how we sleeve it. We're back. All right, so I took my piece of aluminum here. I cleaned up the ends, got it all nice and square. I beveled the edges. This generally keeps things from catching on anything. And then I cleaned it up, got all the scale. Now I ended up grabbing a different piece of steel. The other one was the wrong size. It was 1 3/4, and I needed 1.5 inches. I wasn't paying attention when I grabbed it. Cut the end back at that 52 degrees. Now this is not DOM, drawn over mandrel. This is hot rolled, electronically welded, Hero. It's a little bit different size, so the aluminum actually slides right in on this one. Typically I have to press it in, but we'll probably have to do that for the side steps. My sliders have gotten pretty chewed up. We're going to be replacing these, and these are also going to be sleeved, and I'll be doing those in DOM because I don't have anything. I'm just using what I have laying around that's short for today's project, but for these I will have to cut out of a virgin piece of DOM, and that's likely to need to be sleeved or pressed in there. So we'll get to pressing and showing that a little bit later in the video. But for now, I'm going to put this in there. I'm only going to set it about 1 inch from the end. It just needs to be just past, just enough so that I don't hit it when I'm welding. Basically something like that. I'll get that set in there. We'll bend it, then we'll cut it at the proper length. I know that I need to be 16 inches. So I'll get my starter bend marked, we'll bend it around, and then we should be able to cut it off. Once this piece is bent, it'll be captured in there, it won't be able to go anywhere, and that'll be that. So let's get to it. So, personality station break, and begin. Got everything set up. We will see if I am right. I even remember to put the aluminum in here, so that's a plus. We are set up so that we bend towards my angle. I have measured and done the mathicals, and basically the center line of my bend needed to be 9 inches from this point here. 52 degrees is, what was it, 29% of 180 on a 9-inch circle. Take 29% of 9, and that gives me back 2.6. So I measured out to my center line that I needed, came back 2.6, and that should, when I bend at 52 degrees, put me right on the money. Begin. Bending with the aluminum is really no worse than trying to bend 1/4 inch or something, quarter wall, which is about the max this machine can do. But you can see the aluminum didn't bend at all, or didn't move at all in there. We're 25, 30. Should get pretty close to doing this in one shot. I might have to move it back. 40. 45. Now we're going to go just a little bit past 50, 51, 52. Probably go right up there about 55 and see when I release it. Yeah, see, it's got more spring back because of the aluminum. All right, so we'll go back, we'll go up to, I sprung back to 48 from 55, so we'll go about 57, 58, somewhere in there. Oh yeah, that looks good. Right at 52. So that's why we're sleeving it with the aluminum anyways, is to get that memory so that when you hit it, the exterior metal can't deform as much. The interior metal absorbs that shock and just helps it retain its shape. So let me pull this out. I can't do it single-handed much as I'd like, and then we'll try it on the buggy, that is. Yeah, and it looks like I'm going to need to be just a bit tighter. The bend is correct. My angle is a little off still. Need to be like there. So from there, that's pretty darn close. Gonna have some gaps to fill, but we knew that. All right, let me play with this a little bit, and then I'll bring you back when I've got it, you know, I can look at it from all angles and stuff without holding you guys. We're cutting. I ended up rebending this another 3-4 degrees. Measured it out over there physically, not with the tape. Just compared the two, put a line on it. Now I'm cutting. Now the real question will be, am I right? Does my aluminum end a little bit past where I thought it would, so that I can fit that engineered fitting in there and weld it without running into the aluminum? We'll find that out in a second. I don't see aluminum coming out of it in the cut, so that's a good sign. We'll find out here in a second. Okay, she's getting close. I'll show you where I'm at. When we put a straight edge, you can see I've still got just a bit of a gap in there, right there. So we need to take that out. And in order to do that, I need to bring this back to the tube. Right now it's sitting a little proud as well. There we go. And if we look down this edge, you can see that I'm touching. I don't need to take all the way back to the line. That's going to be a little bit too far. But the line lets me keep things uniform so that I know how much I'm taking off. It gives me a reference point, lets me keep things straight. Otherwise, you end up all kinds of crooked because unless you have a really good eye or looking things at the right direction, it can be difficult. So I'm going to continue to grind that and walk that back. Once I've got it walked back, we'll show you where we're at. So I'm pretty close to where I want to be. When I bring this back just a little bit and get everything situated like I want it, it's sitting pretty straight. It's not perfect, but things are pretty bent up. But it gets me tight back here at the axle. I can get uniform all the way around. Now there is going to be a bit of a gap. I knew that. Cutting with the plasma always removes a little bit of material. So a little bit of fill work is going to be necessary. But at this point, I'm going to get that tacked in. I think what I'll do is tack in the engineered fitting side, take it off, weld it all the way around while it's easy to get to, put it all back in there, bolted it up, and then I'll weld it to the axle. Then we'll move on. The other two major projects that need to be done before this goes to Texas is I want to redo my brake pedal. I've built them a little too close, and a couple of times I've stepped over in an emergency situation or quick reaction time and went too far and hit my gas pedal at the same time. This rig was designed to be driven left and right footed. You got to drive it both feet. So I'm gonna shift my brake pedal over a little bit so that I don't have to worry about stepping on my gas pedal when I step on my brake. Because that's not cool. I've done it twice, 3 times. In the 3 years I've had it, but it's 3 times too many. That being said, we'll get that done. And then I need to redo the sliders. Those 3 things are what really has to happen. So, got the welding started. And it's not going too terribly. Got the top here pretty much done. Started on the bottom here in the center. I don't know. I can't see what I'm doing. And we're not looking horrible. I'm going to do the bottom of here, which had a pretty big gap. And what I've done is I've put a little filler piece in there, just a little bit of wire, just steel wire, just to help fill that gap in. I'm going to do it from the bottom, the same as I did the top, or the other side. And once I got the bottom done, then I can do the top and use the weld itself as my backer. So gonna get on that, and then once that's done, then I can work on putting the steering back together and figuring out what I'm gonna do to brace this, just so we can try to prevent this from happening again. Oh, it's actually been an hour and a half, something like that, since I was on the camera. I finished welded it, and I've been spending the time thinking about my options for any kind of gusset or tubing or something that I can put in there, and I'm just not coming up with anything that I like or that I think that I like and will work. Part of it is just not a much space in there with the steering and everything, in trying to clear it, and everything ends up being really short, doesn't go up very high, and those just lead to weak gussets. I suppose the argument can be made that it's better than nothing, but I'm gonna run without it. I've been going without it for the last 3 years. Just one particular obstacle is what did this, and so I'm gonna chance it again. But that being said, what I'm getting ready to do is paint it. So I sprayed it down with some brake clean. I'm getting ready to just make sure everything's cleaned up, and then we'll get in there with some hammered gray and spray paint her up. And we are back on the buggy right now. You know, I was working on down here, getting all of this done, and I finished that, and I was supposed to move to the sliders, but my new winch came in. The brake had quit on the old worn 9.5. It was an excellent winch. I really liked it. It's worked for years. I've probably had it for 15 years or something. It was used when I got it. But the brake finally gave out on it. It quit holding, and that's rather important. So it was like almost as much to replace the brake in that one as it was to buy a new winch. So I'm going to try one of these OpenRoads for this. And of course, right away, I've got to try to modify everything because that's the way I roll. So the winch itself is mounted, but the control box here normally mounts right on top of the winch, like so. Not that it looks bad or anything, it's fine, but I decided I like this look better. Very clean. So I'm going to take this, and we're going to mount it up in here in my fender, out of the way. I got to build a bracket to do so. So it'll be mounted down in here, kind of like that. And then I will extend the wires by making new ones and run them down to the winch. I've got to take my power cable for it, and we'll reroute it. It's got plenty of length. The battery for it is in the back of the buggy, so there's plenty of length on it, which is also one of the reasons why it's such a big wire. So I will reroute that up to the new control box, and then the control wire, this one, I have to reroute it. The original one, I run mine hardwired in. Just it's rather than having to deal with pulling the controller out or having one banging around or looped around the steering wheel or any number of other configurations, I just have mine hardwired in. So I will once again hardwire it in. So I had to reroute up where that was going, and I had to pull the worn one out. The worn one originally ran right up through here and then back through the harness to the driver's compartment. I've already pulled it out and gotten everything buttoned back up. So while I've got it, I've never had the provision for a suck down winch. I didn't plan for it. I'd never really used one. I have discovered since then I really need one. So what I'm going to do, I've got two tabs here. These are shock tabs and a bolt, and we are going to mount the shock tabs here far enough apart for the thimble to fit in it. I'm going to drill them out to accept this bolt. I'm going to cut the bolt off and make it for a pin, and we will get that mounted up in there so that we can just put the thimble in there, put the bolt through it, put the pin in it to lock it in, use it as a suck down winch, and then the rest of the time I can use it with a soft shackle or any other number of accessories. So that's what we're doing. I'm going to get started on that, and I will bring you back in once we start making the bracket to mount the control box. So I got some trick tabs here. I'm going to take these, we're going to weld them here, one and another. Then I'm going to take a piece of scrap aluminum that I got laying around, and we're going to bend it on a 90, so it'll sit like that and then like that. Go underneath the control box. This control box doesn't have a lot of weight to it, so I don't think that the aluminum will give me problems. I could weld in some angle on it, I suppose. Something just to give me a little tab in there. Probably be good practice even for my TIG welding skills. So I may do that. We'll see how spunky I feel, or how, probably put it in there and see how bouncy it is. But at any rate, so that being said, I pulled some tape measures, and it looks like about 2 inches is what I'm going to need to be. So I'm going to make it a little bit long because this side needs to be at like 2.5, give or take. But I'm measuring at 2.5. And then I need the original bracket was only just under 4 inches. So we'll probably just mimic that. I don't need it to go the whole distance. So we'll go 4. All right, so that'll be a bend. This is a cut, and then we'll need to drill some holes in here. I'll need to center all that. We'll drill some holes, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Probably go ahead and slot them as well, just so that there's a little bit of ease of putting them in. Let's get these bent, then we'll have to get some holes drilled for the trick tabs, and then we'll go from there. I got the tabs. Trick tabs welded in. We've got things basically sussed out. Now what I need to do, just clamp my level. All right, so what this is doing is making sure, not that it needs, I mean, that controller thing's going to work fine no matter what, whether it's level or not. Oh, of course not. Should probably drill one hole and then come back and drill the second. probably what I'm gonna do. But at any rate, all right, so we got this level. I got the holes marked. I'll probably drill one, then drill the other, because I can't drill holes and get them to line up for nothing. But at any rate, we'll do that, then we'll be able to get it bent, and then it's just a matter of drilling holes in the base plate to mount to the control box, which the control box is here. I've got it upside down, and we're gonna have to remake these wires, these ones here. Now, one of the things I don't like is the way they have these bent in there. I'm gonna have to figure something out. Maybe try to pre-bend the lugs before I put them on. I don't know, but I'll have to do something, because that just seems like it's going to eventually be a failure point. So we'll address that when we get into it. But we're getting closer. Things are moving along. So we've got it sitting in there. This is bolted in, not permanently. I'll have to put some lock washers and stuff on it, but that's how it's going to work. Just going to sit there. Now I just need to make my cables and run the control cord to my switch. So I got it wired up inside the box, and I went ahead and bent all my lugs. I tried to bend the ones that were originally on this, and I can see why they didn't do it. They just snapped off immediately. But these are a little bit better. They actually were able to be bent in the vise. So no more tension on the cable itself. It's the 90s in the lug itself. All right, so now all we're going to do is put the bottom on it. It'll get flipped up right and get bolted to this, which it has a little bit of bounce to it. I don't think it's going to be that bad. If it does, then I'll weld in some angle here, gussets, just to hold it in place, or maybe just one gusset down the center. We'll see. But for now, I'll get that bolted in. Then we'll run all of our cables to the motor. I got to make a new grounding end for this one. I'm just going to ground it up here to this grounding lug up on the chassis, and that'll be that. Appreciate you watching the video. If you made it this far, quick question for the comments: do these glasses make my eyes look fat? I've been wondering. If you would, take a moment, like and subscribe, hit the bell, share with a friend. Any support we can get for the channel, it's greatly appreciated. Stay tuned for next week's video, where we finish the preparations and repairs to my buggy ham and cheese sandwich as we prep for our Texas trip to Wolf's Caves. I think earlier in the video I said Contempsey Rocks. That's incorrect. They are back to back. They're like 5 minutes from each other, but we can't gain access to Contempsey Rocks because of the hunting that's going on. No big deal. Wolf's Cave is just as good. And as always, we have a lot of videos coming out next year. We'll be doing the LS swap and the Jimmy. We'll be doing our series on the Rat Rod for our Rat Rod Magazine 2024 build-off entry. We got work coming up on the black Toyota that was shown in one of my earliest videos. And we'll also be working on the red Dodge, getting it set up to be back on the street. So lots of exciting content coming up. If you would, continue to support us by liking and subscribe. I'd greatly appreciate it. But with that, we're going to sign off.